When you walk into a room and everything goes quiet, you always wonder. For 13 months and counting, as individuals and families of every construct, and as a city, we have been sorely tested. Tested by a ruthless pandemic and all of the cascading ills of sickness, death, fear, and anger. Hunger, economic ruin, and pain, real pain. Our sense of normal and reliance on the routine of the everyday has been upended. And in this same time, we felt a tidal wave of civic uprising following the murder of George Floyd. And today, ladies and gentlemen, justice there was served. Through these series of crises that have tested us all like no other period in our history, rays of sunshine, sometimes faint, but persistently present, broke through the clouds. And that is why we are here tonight, to highlight and honor those many rays of light that warmed our hearts and gave us hope. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much for being here. It's my great honor to welcome you all to the inaugural Mayor's Medal of Honors Award ceremony, where we will honor some individuals and organizations who have made extraordinary contributions to our residents throughout 2020, and particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's an understatement to say the least that 2020 tested us in countless ways. And in looking at what we've lost over this past year, it's hard not to be caught up in the breathtaking nature of it all. We lost thousands of lives, billions in revenue and economic losses, as well as precious milestones, time with family and friends, and the core sense of normalcy and certainty that guides our lives. As breathtaking as these losses have been, however, they do not tell the full story of what we've experienced over the course of this past year. Amidst loss and grief, we remained resilient. In the face of steep challenges, we remained brave. And even in our darkest hour, we remain persistent, working that much harder to turn a pinprick of hope into a full-blown flood of light at the end of the tunnel. And though we have not fully exited the COVID-19 tunnel we've been in for the past year, every day brings us that much closer to putting the nightmare of 2020 behind us. And that's thanks to the greater sense of unity we've gained as a city. Our willingness to step up and do what's right for all of our residents instead of what's convenient or easy. A renewed commitment to eliminating systemic inequity in individuals and organizations like tonight's honorees. As we're well aware, COVID-19 has both presented us with new challenges and exacerbated the ones we were already grappling with as a city long before the pandemic ever reached our borders. And as our understanding of this virus continued to evolve over the course of 2020, it became crystal clear that we would need to take bold, transformative action that was rooted in equity, as well as an all-hands-on-deck effort that brought in partners from all sectors of our city to fully respond to this crisis. It certainly hasn't been easy by any measure. It required a lot of personal sacrifices and an unwavering commitment to bettering the lives of our residents, even when times were bleak. But nevertheless, we were able to work together with these and other partners to make sure our healthcare system didn't buckle, provide extra supports to our most vulnerable residents, and address the racial disparities in COVID-19 illnesses and death. Continue supporting our young people who carried a disproportionate weight, and so much more. This collaboration didn't stop here, however. In fact, it's been all the more amplified as our city not only continues to respond to this pandemic, but begins its journey toward an equitable, inclusive, and sustainable recovery from it. I've been thinking for some time about the need to honor the selfless work of great Chicagoans. It was not easy to winnow down the list because there are so many that are worthy of praise. Nonetheless, as some recently said, it is important, especially in these times of trouble and strife, to live in these moments of joy and allow ourselves the luxury of drinking from the cup of accomplishments as we gird ourselves for the next day's battle. The individuals and organizations I have the honor of recognizing this evening have genuinely advanced our efforts to return our city to a state of normalcy, and in turn have made it a better place. They are warriors for all the things that we value around equity, social justice, and just plain old caring. Every day, these individuals and organizations speak their truths by loving thy neighbor as thyself. In a few moments, I will introduce each of these incredible honorees individually, but I want to take this time to highlight the wide-ranging and positive impact of their contributions. These are leaders who help keep our small businesses up and running through loans, ensured that our children stayed connected to their passion for learning, and engaged with residents at the community level to make sure they felt safe, supported, and protected. These are organizations who provided food, health care, and child care to communities in need, helped to stand up and run free COVID testing sites across our hardest hit neighborhoods, and reconstructed their operations to provide much needed PPE, hand sanitizer, and other critical resources to our frontline essential workers and our residents. And together, these individuals and organizations are the embodiment of our city's resiliency, which is truly like no other place on the planet. And what it means to be lead by example, guided by our North Stars of equity and inclusion to bring about transformative change in our communities. It's been just over a year since COVID-19 first came to our city. And while we reflect on how it's completely upended our sense of normalcy and presented us with challenges of unimaginable magnitudes, we must use this current moment as an opportunity to celebrate the progress we've made and to use it as an impetus to keep on persevering. That's why tonight, and every year moving forward, the Mayor's Medal of Honor will recognize those who have demonstrated a passionate commitment to public service and uplifting residents across our vibrant and unique 77 neighborhoods. Without the contributions of tonight's awardees, we simply wouldn't be where we are right now as a city. Make no mistake. And it's only right that we use this unprecedented moment to recognize their unprecedented contributions. Over the course of this brutal year, our city did not stand idly by and watch this virus wreak havoc on our residents. We were tested, to be sure, but we were also made stronger and tougher than ever before. We adapted and we endured. We turned determination into real, concrete actions. And we came together, united as one, to not only support our residents in their time of need, but ensure that they also had the resources they need to thrive long after this pandemic is over. I'm so incredibly grateful and humbled to have such selfless, talented, civic-minded partners like tonight's honorees doing the people's work as we continue to recover and heal from this pandemic. And now, without further ado, it's my honor to begin tonight's inaugural Mayor's Medal of Honor ceremony. First off tonight, I have the honor of recognizing our 22 federally qualified healthcare centers, our FQHCs. FQHCs are often referred to as ground zero in our communities, and during the pandemic, that has been absolutely true. In our fight against COVID-19, our FQHCs have been trusted partners to our communities and a compassionate voice to our residents without regard to citizenship status, providing testing and care at low or no cost to residents, assistance with our contact tracing and vaccine distribution efforts, and additional support in our work to reduce vaccine hesitancy in our most vulnerable communities. Our FQHCs also understand that the pandemic hasn't just threatened our physical well-being, but our mental and emotional well-being as well. That's why they have stepped up to play a leadership role in the expansion of critical mental health and wellness resources to residents, meeting them where they are and without judgment. A blessing that quite can't be replicated by any other healthcare system. In a time marked by intense social and economic uncertainty, resource scarcity, this partnership has been invaluable. I'd like to thank all of our FQHCs for their support, and let me call them each out by name. Access Community Health Network, HS Family Health Center, Alivio Medical Center, American Indian Health Service of Chicago, Aunt Martha's Health and Wellness, Beloved Community Family Wellness Center, Chicago Family Health Center, Christian Community Health Center, Erie Family Health Centers, Esperanza Health Centers, Friend Health, Hamdard Center for Health and Human Services, Heartland Alliance Health, Heartland Health Centers, Howard Brown Health, Iman Community Health Center, Lawndale Christian Health Center, Miles Square Health Center, Near North Health Service Corporation, PCC Wellness Center, Prime Care Community Health, Inc., and TCA Health, Inc., not-for-profit. Accepting the Medal of Honor on behalf of the 22 FQHCs, our Esperanza Health President and CEO, Dan Fullwire, and Howard Brown Health Medical Director, Dr. Maya Green. Please come to the stage. Next up, we have Rush University Medical Center. As soon as COVID-19 hit our city, the incredible team at Rush University Medical Center sprang into action, providing high-quality care and support to our residents in their time of need. Rush essentially turned itself into a COVID-19 treatment facility. For their past year, their dedication to protecting the health of our residents and our city has been unwavering. So much that they recently surpassed 100,000 COVID-19 vaccinations just last week. Making sure that our health care system could sustain the crushing demands of the pandemic was a key pillar in our city's response. We ask our hospitals to stretch themselves beyond their normal capacities to prepare for the predicted surge in COVID-related hospitalizations, and not one shrank from that challenge. Many hospitals across our city saw COVID-19 as an opportunity to wrap their arms around patients, new and old, who were struggling during the pandemic. I hope one of the lasting legacies of the pandemic is the incredible spirit of collaboration across our hospital systems, big or small, for-profit or safety net. Competitors became collaborators, and we are all the better for it. Thank you to all of Chicago's hospitals for standing strong in the time of our greatest need. It's impossible to single out the work of one single hospital because of the important contributions of so many. But Rush University Medical Center is worthy of recognition. I'd now like to welcome up Rush University Medical Center CEO Omar Latif and Dr. David Ansel to accept this award. Next up is the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team, or RERRT. Around this time last year, one statistic shocked us to our core. Despite Black residents making up only 29% of Chicago, they and we accounted for 75% of COVID-19 related deaths. To reverse this trend, my team and I conceived of and created the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team. Simply put, to me, the RERRT means lessons learned, partnerships formed, and lives saved by marrying the data and science with equity. The idea was to develop a hyperlocal approach to these gaping disparities, but to do it in partnership with trusted community leaders and stakeholders. The first call we made was to Westside United, and they answered and said yes. We quickly learned that the pandemic was similarly wreaking havoc in Latinx Chicago. So the RERRT expanded its focus and pulled up more seats at the virtual and actual tables that had been set. Today, the RERT consists of many community leaders, providers, stakeholders, and folks who just care about doing the right thing. It has driven our equity-focused COVID mitigation strategies across Black and brown Chicago and laid the foundation for our equity-focused vaccine distribution plan. Every member of this team is a selfless volunteer, sacrificing for the good of the city and its residents. No doubt, the RERRT has set a standard for others to follow, and other cities and states are now knocking on our door to learn from the body of work blazed by the RERRT. I want to thank each and every member of this incredible group of selfless public servants. And I will welcome up Aisha Jocko, CEO of Westside United, to accept this award on behalf of all of the RERRT members. And in case you don't know, you should. Westside United was the first call we made, as I said. And Westside United, we called them and reached out to them because of the incredible work that they were already doing on the West Side, who created a healthcare model and bringing expertise to this important work. And without them, we would never have been able to be successful in the work of RERRT. So please welcome Aisha Jocko. Next up is CORE, or the Community Organized Relief Effort. Long before this pandemic, CORE was already saving lives and strengthening communities affected by or vulnerable to crisis, beginning in 2010 with victims of the tragic earthquake in Haiti. Conceived of and supported by the actor and humanitarian Sean Penn and his partner, Ann Lee. 11 years later, CORE continues to lead sustainable programs in Haiti, the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, and the United States. And here in Chicago in May 2020, when testing was in its infancy, and we were desperate to ramp up our testing resources, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. of Rainbow Push and Yusuf Jackson introduced us to CORE, who was providing testing services in Los Angeles. Rainbow Push helped recruit the workers for those initial testing sites. Working with CORE, the Chicago Department of Public Health was able to bring essential testing to our hardest hit neighborhoods and began hiring our own residents to support this effort. Through heat, rain, sleet, and snow, the core team was at the front lines in our communities and connecting residents to the care that they needed most when they needed it most. And when we pivoted to vaccine distribution in December 2020, the core team remained at the front lines to administer shots in arms and reduce vaccine hesitancy. Thank you, core. Thank you for making a difference both here in Chicago and across the world. And now I'd like to welcome core CEO Ann Lee to accept this award. Next up is Dr. Helene Gail, President and CEO of the Chicago Community Trust. In this very moment, we are so lucky to have an epidemiologist who worked 20 years at the CDC here now in Chicago and leading our community empowerment efforts. Dr. Gail joined the trust in 2017, and in addition to becoming the first woman to lead the organization, oversaw the organization's adoption of a strategic focus on racial and ethnic wealth gap in our city. For Dr. Gail, who's both a public health physician and a fierce trusted voice for equity, this career move allowed her to converge her passions and made her all the more apt at positively transforming the lives and communities of our residents during this pandemic. When the pandemic revealed just how deep our city's economic disparities stem, Dr. Gail didn't flinch. She instead developed a partnership with our city and the United Way of Metro Chicago to establish the Chicago Community COVID Response Fund, which raised millions of dollars to support residents and not-for-profits in our city. But she didn't stop there. More recently, Dr. Gail has led an effort in partnership with the Chicago business community to create the Together We Rise Fund for an equitable and just recovery with more than $25 million in philanthropic and corporate commitments and counting. Dr. Gail's passion for serving the people through philanthropy, equity, and inclusion have been invaluable during this pandemic. Thank you, Dr. Gail, for supporting our city, especially our vulnerable communities, and helping shape our COVID-19 response. It's my pleasure to welcome you to accept your award. Thank you. And last but not least in this first group of awardees is our own Dr. Allison Arwady, our indomitable public health commissioner. If you go to receive care at Community Health in Westtown on a Monday night, you will see our beloved and very popular Dr. Arwady tending to patients. From just one conversation with her, her true spirit shines through. Her patience, calmness, and humbleness make you feel like you're being met where you are, without judgment, and to have a partner with you along the way to work through the challenges you may be facing. This incredible resolve can be summed up in Dr. Arwady's own words, quote, "I do think that when things go crazy, I go calm." I and the rest of the city of Chicago are incredibly blessed to have a public health leader so calm, compassionate, talented, and prepared as Dr. Arwady. Before COVID-19 struck, Dr. Arwady and her team knew how important it was for Chicago to be prepared for a worldwide pandemic. For those of you who don't know, this isn't Dr. Arwady's first battle with an infectious virus. Before she joined our Department of Public Health, Dr. Arwady worked for the CDC as an epidemic intelligence service officer where she was focused on outbreak response. and completed international work on Ebola and the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS. And when she was at the Illinois Department of Public Health, she responded to disease outbreaks at a statewide level. So while other locations were struggling to locate PPE and ventilators and other vital equipment, Chicago was already prepared with a stockpile because of Dr. Arwady's foresight, and even better equipped to respond to this pandemic before it reached our borders. The CDPH, under Dr. Arwady's leadership, started tracking this virus in December of 19. Thanks to her leadership and guidance, our city has adopted a data-driven and equity-focused approach from which we have never wavered, nor will we. This approach has saved lives for so many of our residents. Thank you for everything. I thought I would get through this without breaking into tears. Dr. Arwady, you've been an incredible partner to me personally. I can't even think of how we would have gotten through this last year without you and your steady hand and your guidance. It's my honor to welcome you up to accept this award. And this next group of honorees, first up is Brad McConnell, who is representing Allies for Community Business as a CEO. It's a gross understatement to say that our pandemic had a devastating impact on our small businesses, which employed 60% of our workforce and are at the core of our neighborhoods' economies. In March 2020, we quickly realized that we would need to build supports for our small businesses literally overnight. And as our emergency funds dried up, if they had any, that it would just be a few days for them to last. Finding a way to support these businesses and quickly required partnerships. Partnerships with a leader with years of economic and public service experience and someone who was willing to work day in and day out to support our small businesses. That's why Brad McConnell was one of the first people we called. When we told Brad what we needed to build supports for our small businesses overnight, he didn't flinch. He responded, "Whatever you need, we'll figure it out to get the job done," and proceeded to lift heaven and earth to create and help administer our Small Business Resiliency Fund announced in March of 2020. That fund resulted in over $100 million in emergency funding to over 22,000 community businesses, and one-on-one group and coaching sessions for approximately 15,000 community business owners. On top of that, Brad put together a team almost overnight to ensure that throughout this process, allies could provide technical assistance and language resources to increase business owners' access to this incredible resource and initiative. Folks, we did hear more in Chicago than New York and LA combined to help our small businesses. And allies and Brad McConnell were a big part of that success story. So Brad, thank you for answering the call to action with enthusiasm and helping to keep the doors to so many of our businesses open. It's my honor to welcome you up to present you with this award and to wish your son Quinn a very happy birthday. Next is Natasha Smith-Walker, Executive Director of Project Exploration. Natasha has a laser focus on building an equitable ecosystem for youth facing organizational to support our young people, especially when they aren't in school. At Project Exploration, she has worked to expand equity, access, and opportunity for girls, minority youth, and underserved communities such as our own Austin neighborhood. And through her partnership with DePaul University, a network of city departments, CPS, After School Matters, museums, faith leaders, and community organizations like BUILD, Westside Media Project, the Boys and Girls Club, Austin Coming Together, and Westside Health, I think she partners with basically everyone in town. Natasha helped to model and build out programming for My Shy, My Future in 2020, our city's signature youth-focused initiative, keeping our kids connected to meaningful out-of-school experience throughout the pandemic. Amy and I have seen Natasha and Project Exploration at our Summer on the Block pop-ups, Hollow Week activities, and Make 2021 Yours initiatives all year. And her commitment to keeping our young people engaged and connected to opportunities to have fun during this difficult moment takes true talent, creativity, and constant focus and effort. Natasha, thank you for your partnership and passion for uplifting our youth. And it's now my honor to welcome you to accept your award. Next up is our incredible Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Commissioner, Rosa Escarano. Rosa is the epitome of selfless public service. I have no idea how many times I've called Rosa late at night, on the weekends, to talk through how we keep our businesses informed and open and keep restaurant workers and patrons safe, remove barriers to small business funding, and so much more. Each and every time, she has picked up the phone with enthusiasm and desire to get to the bottom of any problem facing our city, and she always says, "We'll get right on it." An enthusiasm and desire that stems from her more than 25 years of dedicated public service and experience championing initiatives that enhance the quality of life of our residents across each of our 77 neighborhoods. For Rosa, any effort to support our businesses and our workforce must include the voices of those she and BACP seek to help. That's why she and her team have done more community engagement meetings than I can even count. Through sheer force of will, Rosa and her amazing team have kept many of our businesses open and afloat, their workers safe, and our entire business community updated and informed on all things COVID. Rosa, I can't even begin to explain how grateful I am for your leadership, contributions, and dedication. And to your son, I hope you recognize you've got an incredible mom. It's now my honor to present you with this award. Next, I have the pleasure of recognizing Zachary Menjivar, our youngest recipient of the Mayor's Medal of Honor. Zachary is living proof that no one is too young to leave a lasting impact on our great city. In addition to serving our Belmont-Cragen community through the Belmont-Cragen Youth Leadership Council, Zachary has been working tirelessly with both Alderman Felix Cardona and the Northwest Side Housing Center to raise awareness about COVID-19, and has volunteered at more than 10 food and mass distribution events in the neighborhood. His selfless commitment to our city doesn't stop there. You'd be hard-pressed not to find Zachary somewhere in the mix in our citywide equity and inclusion initiatives. For example, he has even gone on outreach walks with my team, shared youth perspectives to inform the work of the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team, and even come to join the launch video of the Together We Heal campaign. Zachary is always looking for that next opportunity to step up and support our most vulnerable communities, all while continuing his education during this challenging year. Zachary, you've made a tremendous impact on Belmont-Cragen and our entire city. Ladies and gentlemen, when we despair and we think about what's going on with our youth, remember this young man. He is brilliant and blazing a trail for the rest of us to follow. So Zachary, it's my pleasure to invite you to the stage to accept your award. Next, it's my pleasure to recognize Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council Ballet Folklorico. Our arts and cultural organizations have all worked their creative muscles to keep their art making alive in many ways and contribute to the health and wellness of the communities that they serve. Ballet Folklorico, in particular, however, identified a great need early on in the pandemic, a shortage of masks, and acted immediately to fulfill this need. Before the pandemic struck, the ballet company was dazzling audiences from near and far through performances and teaching students as young as 3 about Mexican folkloric dance and culture. Then, once the pandemic hit, the dance troupe pivoted from making costumes to making masks, alongside the Chicago Youth Service Corps for the Back of the Yards community. Not only did this effort keep their costume artists busy, but it also provided jobs, skill building, and art-making opportunities for our young people that will last long after this pandemic is over. I want to give a huge thanks to everyone associated with the company for helping protect the lives and culture and traditions of our residents. And it's now my pleasure to welcome Sergio Palazzo from the troupe to accept this award. Sergio. And last but not least in the second group is gadshill Early Childhood Centers. In the earliest days of the pandemic, when many of our essential workers were especially worried about going to work, staying safe, and keeping their kids healthy, gadshill centers became a beacon of light in the darkness. Instead of closing their doors like many other spaces, gadshill centers remained open, and their staff worked tirelessly to ensure our youngest residents were able to keep learning and living with some semblance of normalcy during the pandemic. And to the families that gadshill served, who didn't have the luxury of staying home, gadshill provided an essential service for their children. gadshill also organized check well-being missions for community members in the neighborhoods where they serve. In the gadshill network, there were no strangers, just neighbors and friends who were richly supported in a time of great need. In addition, Gadshill Centers has accelerated its ongoing equity and inclusion efforts to support our immigrant communities and Black and brown residents, amplifying their voices and serving as a strong advocate on behalf of the fight for more holistic investments and supports for our children and their families. Thank you, Gadshill Centers, for keeping your doors open this past year. It's now my pleasure to welcome Gadshill's Chief Operating Officer, Rosa Julia Garcia Rivera, to accept the award on behalf of this incredible organization. First up in this final set of awardees is the Poytok Center, a church-based community center that serves Chicago's Chinatown. As many of you know, Chinatown was one of the first communities in our city to be deeply impacted by COVID-19. Left and right, residents were losing their jobs, struggled to access resources, sometimes due to limited English skills, and had to deal with the unfortunate and awful xenophobic rhetoric, insinuating that somehow Asian Americans had started the pandemic. These challenges are each breathtaking in and of themselves, but Poytok Center stood up to support Chinatown residents and quickly became a community lifeline. When residents lost their jobs, Poytok Center helped no less than 700 residents with unemployment claims. When gathering in large groups was discouraged and social distancing was put in place, the Poytok Center pivoted and continued providing adult ESL classes and after-school programs virtually. When families had little to no food to eat, the Poytok Center partnered with other community organizations to provide food to over 6,000 households across 20 different events. And when life-saving vaccine arrived to our city, once again, the center stood up and worked with a healthcare provider to vaccinate over 2,000 limited English-speaking seniors and essential workers in Chinatown. The center has undoubtedly advanced our mission of supporting our most vulnerable residents as we respond and recover from this pandemic. And I'd like to thank them on behalf of a grateful city and particularly Chinatown residents, and welcome Executive Director David Wu to accept this award. Next, I have the honor of recognizing Illinois Unitos. Especially throughout this pandemic, Illinois Unitos has been a model for true partnership between communities and government. Long heralded as a trusted community partner, Illinois Unitos brings together Latinx academics, policy leaders, and health professionals to tackle the problems of disproportionate numbers of COVID-19 cases in the Latinx community and vaccine misinformation. Not only has Illinois Unitos helped to lay the foundation for an equitable health system due to its work to shape policy, but in the true spirit of healthy tension, it has challenged me and my administration to work that much harder to serve our Latinx communities. Illinois Unitos is an unapologetic champion for Latinx Chicago. They have not waited to be asked for permission. They are true community leaders. Even in the most stressful moments, Illinois Unitos has come to the table time and again with a willingness to listen about what we're seeing at the community and neighborhood level, receive feedback and give it, and work together to come up with strategies to better our communities. This willingness to roll up their sleeves and work closely in partnership has been invaluable over the course of this difficult year, and it provided us with new ways of approaching the challenges our city and our Latinx communities face. No doubt, our city response to COVID-19 in Latinx Chicago is better because of our work with Illinois Unitos. And I have said time and time again in many diverse audiences, we need to replicate Illinois Unitos' model all over Chicago. Thank you, Illinois Unitos, for your incredible contributions over the course of this year. And I'd like to welcome Illinois Unitos co-chair Xavier Nogueras to accept this award. And for those who are wondering, doesn't that guy look familiar? Years ago, when I think he was 16 years old, he stood on the stage at UIC Pavilion following the death of our beloved Mayor Harold Washington and gave a eulogy that day as a young man. And he has followed the path that he set for himself at such an early age. Thank you so much for all that you have done for our city. Next up is the Greater Chicago Foods Depository, Chicago's hometown food bank. One of my personal worries at the start of the pandemic was making sure that our people were fed. Time and again, the Greater Chicago Food Depository allayed my fears. The Food Depository believes that a healthy community starts with food. And that became especially clear throughout 2020. In the earliest days of the stay-at-home order that was issued last March, the Food Depository met with my team to strategize how we could continue to bring food, dignity, and hope to residents across our city during this crisis. What they initially thought would be a crisis that would be measured in weeks turned out to be one measured in months, leading Executive Director and CEO Kate Maher and her team to make a crucial but prescient decision. While jobs were eliminated and countless residents found themselves in their own personal crises, the Food Depository kept its network of more than 700 food pantries and soup kitchens open across Cook County, rather than shift to large food distribution sites like we saw in other places across the country. It was a risk, for sure. But as images flooded the internet of drivers lining up for miles to wait for food, the Food Depository drew a line in the sand and said this would never happen in Chicago, and it didn't. As a result, they distributed no less than 93 million, that's right, 93 million pounds of food throughout Chicago and Cook County by June 2020 alone. Thank you, Greater Chicago Food Depository, for the long, tireless hours you spent ensuring none of our residents went hungry and without access to the resources they need to be able to realize their God-given potential, even in a pandemic. I just want to say on a personal note, Kate, you've been amazing. Your team has stepped up. You've supported so many community organizations in countless ways. You are incredibly deserving of this honor, so I welcome you to the stage. Next up is owner and chef at Virtru Restaurant and Bar, Chef Eric Williams. When asked why he was named his restaurant Virtru back in 2019, Chef Williams responded, quote, "The world is currently craving kindness, and kindness is a virtue, and it's hard to be kind to people if you don't talk to them." And I think I speak for many of us when I say that after the year that we've just had, we're all craving that kindness and connection to others just that much more. Even in the face of immense challenges, Chef Williams continued to lead his team with his emphasis on kindness. And as our businesses began to shut down and our restaurants closed their doors, Chef Williams drew on the advice he received from an older family member throughout the years. In times of trouble, take it one day at a time. So Chef Williams and his team began to adapt to the reality of 2020 one day at a time, shifting to curbside pickup, donating meals to frontline workers during the pandemic, and even participating in collaborations ranging from an Italian beef sandwich to an acclaimed artist dinner to keep their doors open and residents fed. Chef Williams you are the embodiment of our values, of the values of your restaurant. And I want to thank you for delivering kindness and compassion, as well as delicious meals to our residents in their time of need, Amy and I included. So it's my honor to now welcome you up to receive this award. Next up is Koval Distillery. As one of the largest fully independent and women-owned craft distilleries in the country, Koval is known around the world for its Chicago-made spirits. But in 2020, it became known for its ingenuity in a time of crisis. When hand sanitizer supplies were running low across the nation, Koval Distillery President Sonat Bernecker-Hart and her team didn't hesitate to research the World Health Organization's recipe for it and order all of the ingredients. Koval's team did all of that knowing that they were risking the company's federal license, which only allows the distillery to make alcohol for consumption. But they also knew that the risk of more lives being lost to this virus was far greater. So local folks put Sonat in touch with U.S. Representative Mike Quigley to work on loosening restrictions for distillers to make hand sanitizer. And shortly after, Koval transitioned its operations to produce hand sanitizer for our frontline essential workers and donated over 5,000 gallons of sanitizer. I had to stop myself because that's a large amount of hand sanitizer. Over 5,000 gallons of sanitizer to organizations and individuals in need. I want to thank Koval for its quick thinking and creativity, and welcome up Koval Distillery President Dr. Sonat Bernecker-Hart and her husband and co-founder and business partner, Robert, to accept this award. Come on up. And Amy reminded me while we were watching the video for this group that on Saturday night we ate a great roast chicken and mac and cheese from Virtru. And we had, which I wish you'd never invented, the cranberry-infused gin liqueur from Koval. So thank you. Next up is Daniel Anello, CEO of Kids First Chicago. Anyone who knows Daniel knows that he has kids' interests at heart, first and foremost. And whereas others would become cynical in times of crises, Daniel takes it as an opportunity to advance his mission of transformative change. That's why when the pandemic struck and quarantine hit, accelerating his team's effort at Kids First Chicago to bridge the digital divide was a no-brainer. Without internet access, pure and simple, children are unable to learn from home, and the opportunity gaps between black and brown children and low-income communities widens. To further confirm this, Kids First Chicago launched a study in April 2020 that found that in some areas of our city, such as Inglewood, a staggering 46% of children didn't have access to broadband at home. And as Daniel has said himself, quote, "Those figures do not properly illustrate the scale of the issue on the ground." The truth is, he said, if you go block to block, there are areas where 80% of the households aren't even connected, just based on the poverty conditions that are there, end quote. So Daniel dug deeper, worked even harder, and eventually working with our city CFO, Jenny Bennett, and CPS CEO, Dr. Janice Jackson, and others, set the foundation for the launch of our signature program to stem the digital divide called Chicago Connected, the nation's first ever comprehensive internet access program, giving thousands of CPS families free, long-awaited access to the internet and broadband, and allowing thousands of our children to continue their studies through remote learning throughout the pandemic. Chicago Connected is now a model for the nation, based in no small measure to the efforts of Daniel and his kids at Team First. I've also got to give a shout out to the Crown family, who made the financial proposition for Chicago Connected happen. So thank you, Daniel, for taking a stand every day on behalf of our kids and working tirelessly, not only to support them and their families, but do something important here, which is bridge the digital divide in our city. So please come to the stage and accept this award. Now, while the table might be bare, we do have one last awardee who could not be with us here tonight, but warrants our praise nonetheless, and that is Dr. Nick Turkle, President and CEO of Advocate Aurora Health. In the height of the pandemic, when hospital beds were few and COVID-19 infections were sky high, we knew we needed to create more spaces for our residents to receive the care we feared that they would need. Our modeling at times showed a possible collapse of our health system if we didn't act fast, so we sprang into action. Our beloved McCormick Place Center, which sat idle as conventions came to a halt, provided the perfect solution for addressing a need for more hospital beds. Many people and entities made the McCormick Place alternate care facility possible. Thanks goes to FEMA, the Army Corps of Engineers, and state actors like Governor J.B. Pritzker, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency and its leader, General Tate Nadeau, Loretta Clark of McPeer, along with the tradesmen and women who worked tirelessly to build this facility from the ground up in days, not weeks. Thanks to one and all, along with members of my team that I think didn't sleep for a couple weeks straight to make sure that this alternative care facility became a reality. But to make the actual care of patients a reality, we needed a seasoned leader, someone creative, inventive, and unflappable. And that's why Samir Mayakar, my deputy mayor for economic and neighborhood development, called Dr. Nick Turkle. Dr. Turkle, who was enjoying his well-earned retirement in rural Wisconsin, offered his help without any hesitation. And despite being able to advise their city over the phone or Zoom, even knowing very much about this new virus, he decided to drive to Chicago, set up a home away from home, and bring together an all-star team to build out the alternative care facility, which was later regarded by FEMA as the most professionally run alternate care facility in the country. This incredible effort and achievement would not have been possible without Dr. Turkle, whose oversight and calm demeanor helped keep folks focused on the task of putting up the site instead of the high-pressure situation surrounding it. Though he couldn't be with us tonight, I want to thank Dr. Turkle for his collaboration and expertise, which has helped us get to this point in our COVID-19 journey. So let's applaud Dr. Turkle. And now we've come to the end of this incredible night. Let's give another round of applause to all of our awardees. I want to to thank you all for joining us in this evening in the first annual Mayor's Medal of Honor. There were a lot of people who made this night possible. I won't even begin to start listing the names, but I appreciate every single person who helped us source the awardees, who put together the program, the video. This is a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and I want to give thanks first and foremost to my wife, Amy Eshelman, who really took up the mantle. When I talked to her a little while ago about this night and she said, as she usually says, "Seriously, Lori? All right, fine. We'll figure out how to get it done." So thank you. I want to thank our Chief Marketing Officer, Michael Fastnock, who I think thought he was getting an award tonight, but I'll just give you my thanks instead. Thank you, Michael. Thanks to the entire team for a job well done. We are humbled and grateful to have so many individuals and organizations in our city willing to go above and beyond the call of duty in a time of need. Thanks to you all for your contributions and commitment to public service. We remained a strong city in 2020, a year that tested us in unimaginable ways because of your work, because of your sacrifice, and making Chicagoans of all stripes feel like they were loved, supported, and connected in a time when many of us were in despair. The work that you've done has lifted us up. We stand on your shoulders and build on the work and honor your commitment by the things that we do today, tomorrow, and in the future. So I'll just close by saying again, thank you. It's humbling to be a mayor in a city like this, with so many people who have stepped up in incredible ways. Even when we have dark moments, that light shines through because of each of you. So thank you, good night, and congratulations to all.